Good afternoon, welcome to Our Small Footprint. If you're new here, I'm Nyssa, and we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Today I need to can up some soups. So we had some issues with supply, some empty shelves and issues with supply this month's shopping trip. There's a video on it, I'll put it up in the cards. And so my meat this month was a little bit different to normal. So instead of being able to buy some bulk chicken breasts and chicken thighs and things like that, what I ended up getting was 24 size 9 whole chickens. So they're about 1 kilo each, full weight. And what I did was I did 2 batches of 12 in the smoker and cooked 24 of them up in the smoker. Then we stripped them all, and we have used, and all the carcasses get frozen in bags in lots of 2 to use to make stock and dog food. And all the meat we stripped from the bones and is in containers in the fridge at the moment. So what I'm doing today is I'm going to can some of it up in soup. So we've got smoked chicken straight from the carcasses, and then I'll put garlic, onion, carrots, potato and that sort of thing in it. And I just did stock this morning, so I put a full can load of stock on this morning, and it's hot on the stove still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dice everything up, put it all in some bowls to get ready to put it in jars, and then I'm going to jar it up and can it. So let me take you over to the bench and we'll get started. Alrighty, so soup in jars can be just about anything you want it to be. You can do any mix of vegetables that you want in small amounts to any meats, beef, chicken, whatever you'd like. So we like the smoked chicken soup, and I tend to put onion, garlic, celery, carrot and potato in it, and then that way we can use it however we want. So that I can use it just as soup, or I can thicken it up and make chicken pot pie out of it. I can do many different things with a pot of fairly standard chicken soup. So you can add bouillon into it, or you can add spices or anything like that if you want. We leave it fairly plain. I use the stock that I've made, so that gives it a nice lot of flavour, and I normally add a little bit of salt. But I find that leaving it like that and then doing whatever I want to do with it afterwards is better. So if it's canned fairly plain, and then I just adjust the seasonings when I decide what it is that I'm going to make with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up a whole bunch of veggies and put it all in some bowls here. Put the potatoes in some water so they don't discolour while I'm waiting, and get it all sorted so that I can then just apportion it into the jars and get it ready to be canned up. It's a pretty simple thing, but we don't have the freezer space to store it, and it's I much prefer it off the shelf than out of the freezer, because if it's in the freezer then you have to remember to defrost it and things like that, and you can end up burning it and stuff when you're trying to defrost it, like if you put it in a pot to defrost it. And back after the dogs went nuts over who knows what. So I just roughly chop all the onion up. It's going to be pressure canned for 90 minutes because there's meat in it, so it's not like it is going to be undercooked in any way, so it doesn't have to be too small because it works. But we very much like having soup on the shelves because of the ease of serving it. All you have to do is go and grab a jar off the shelf and then stick it in a pot. No defrosting or planning required, and it's there. And the versatility of the basic soup, as I said, you can make chicken pot pies or cobblers or anything like that out of it as well. One of the kids' favourite meals is they go and grab a jar of vegetable soup and a jar of meat-based soup, and then they just add a bag of dried macaroni to it and let the macaroni cook in the soup, and they eat that with whatever bread I happen to have cooked as a meal, and they really enjoy that. So and that's fine by me. It's lots of nutrients in there and nice whole filling meal that I don't have to prep, which isn't really true because I prepped it previously, but I don't have to prep at that particular meal time, so it works really well on a busy evening, garden season, things like that. And we eat a lot of soup during the winter months because it's just so pleasant, you know, to have hot meals and hot soup and fresh bread in winter, and to be able to have it straight off the shelf is really convenient. So yeah, so I'm going to get all this cut up and in bowls, and then I will bring you back when I've got all my jars ready and show you how we stick it all in the jars and get moving on that. Now I purposely bought some washed red potatoes to use for this, so that because I'd have to peel, I think the guidelines are that you're supposed to peel all potatoes. That's a little bit of a thing. I don't peel them if I can make sure they're clean. So using my own potatoes wouldn't necessarily be something I would do because I just can't get them clean enough out of the dirt that I have thrown them in. I'd end up having to peel them. So I purposely bought some washed red potatoes, and then I'm going to put them in a bowl with some lemon juice and water to soak before I can with them. And I'm comfortable with leaving the skin on because they're purchased, cleaned and washed, and yeah, it's your comfort level of that. I believe the guidelines still state that you must peel all potatoes though. Alright, so we got about 4 kilos of potatoes diced up here, and I'm doing some carrots. Now I peel carrots purely for aesthetic purposes. Carrot skin is so quick to go black if left for any period of time and exposed to air, so I just find it easier to peel them and then chop and tail them and dice them up. So just give them quick peel. I'm not particularly precise about it, just the majority of the skin off, just so that you don't end up with that oxidization of the skin that floats around in the soup and just makes it look bad. So these are store-bought carrots as well, so carrots aren't something that I've managed to grow in large abundance, only enough for the kids to snack on. We don't really have the depth of soil here for carrot growing, unfortunately, but maybe as the years go on and we improve the soil underneath our raised beds, there will be depth of soil to allow for carrot growth. But you know, for the moment, carrots are an inexpensive thing to purchase, so they're one of the items that I purchase each month. The kids will eat them as snacks. They go through, I don't know, we probably go through 20 kilos a month, because between cooking and just fresh eating and pickling, the kids really like pickled carrots as well, so we do jars of them up in the fridge for them to snack on as well. So I'm just going to peel all of these, and then I will dice them up as well, so that I've got everything handy to fill my jars with. Alrighty, jars washed. I've got some quart jars, as well as some Fowler's jars here, which are number 36s. I think they're about 1.2 litres. Now, I'm raw packing the soup, so they're just freshly washed jars, and everything's going in cold. When I raw pack soup, I normally use raw meat as well. I couldn't get any chicken breasts and things like that. Let me just adjust it slightly. There we go. Couldn't get any chicken breasts or thighs or anything this month, so we only had the whole chickens. Rather than piecing them raw, I find it easy to smoke them whole and then strip them. So we're going to use cooked chicken meat, but raw everything else. There is methods where you can heat up everything within your liquid and then can the soup. I'm just going to adjust. It's better. And then there is methods where you can throw it all in a big stock pot and can cook the soup or cook the soup and then pack it in cooked. I find that a lot of extra work. I find raw packing the easiest thing to do. So all I do is I top the jars accordingly. So this is a half a cup. So I'll put probably a cup and a half in these jars of potato, and then find enough space everywhere, of course. Do half a cup of carrot, we'll see how that goes. Half a cup of onion, and just a sprinkle of celery. That looks about right, and then we'll put chicken in the top, and then we'll put stock. So the chicken's in the fridge because there's flies everywhere, so I'm just going to go through all these jars and put the vegetables in first, and then I will pull the chicken out, and I will strain off the stock as well. Alrighty, so all the vegetables are in the jars, and you know, Australia, off-grid, all the rest of it. We have some clean tea towels on top of them just because it's really bad with the flies today. So I've got the chicken, so I'm going to add the chicken to the top of the jars as well, and then I'm going to top them up with stock. Now, there isn't a whole lot of chicken in ratio in these jars, but we have jars of just straight chicken and stuff on the shelf that can be added if we need to extend it for whatever purpose, or we want to add more meat for a different dish or whatever else. But veggies are cheaper than meat, so you get the flavour of the meat in there and a few bits and pieces of it without creating a whole lot of extra cost. So all I'm going to do is just put about half a cup of the smoked chicken in the top, and that brings it up to about a good level. And then I'm going to cover this lot back up and put the same in the quart jars. See the flies absolutely everywhere today. It is about 34 degrees and about 65% humidity. We're supposed to be getting rain tomorrow, so the flies and stuff are even worse than normal. So we'll get these topped up. Cover these ones back up, and I'll grab another container of chicken for the quart jars because I don't want to leave it out because it's hot and flies. Alright, all the jars have chicken in them. I will bring you around to the other side when I put the stock in them. So the main ones, let's just get these quickly topped up with stock so that we can get lids and stuff on them. So I've strained my stock, and now I am just going to put this in. Now the jars look like they got a fair bit of like they look fairly full with the chicken and the veggies and stuff, but I haven't shaken the jars or pushed anything in. I've just placed it, so they're actually got plenty of room. So I'm going to take them to an inch of headspace, and then I'll debubble them and double check the headspace on them, and things will settle a little bit when I do that. But so it's getting three and a bit cups of stock in there, so there's plenty of liquid in there for them to be canned safely. I'm not going to season these at all because I'm not sure what I'm going to use them for, whether I use them for pies or whatever else. I prefer to season them once we get them out and they're heating up. So, and the kids don't really generally need much in the way of seasoning anyway. So I'm just going to get all these topped up and covered back up because these flies are just driving me insane. So alright, everything's got stock in it. I'm going to debubble it. Again, my packing stick and my debubbler, they're both missing, so I'm just using the back end of a wooden spoon. So you just want to use something long and narrow that isn't metal. So I'm just going to go through and just stick it 3 or 4 times down the sides to get any bubbles out, and then I will have to adjust the liquid for the headspace. So it just settles everything in there. Just like that. So I'm just going to go through and do that with all of them, and then top up any that need to be topped up. Alrighty, let's get these jars lids on so that I don't have to worry about the flies. So, ball mason jars. They're 2-part lids. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the tops with vinegar like normal. Generous with the vinegar. I like to make sure it's well and truly clean because I'm using homemade stock, which means that the stock is a little bit fattier than like store-bought stuff. And you want to make sure as you do this that you're checking the rims to make sure that there's no cracks or chips, because if there's any cracks or chips in the top surface of your ball mason jars, then the lids won't seal. So while I'm doing this, I'm double checking the rims of all the glasses as well. White vinegar, clean cloth, and just double checking as I go. Move the bits of the cloth around so you've got fresh bits of cloth if you think you're picking up any fat or any bits of food, to make sure that you're cleaning the rims with the vinegar, making sure that there's nothing on that surface that's going to impact the seal. Alright, so then I have my new lids here. I wipe them with vinegar as well. Again, that's something that I do because we live somewhere that's full of dust, and it's just really hard to keep things clean. So I find that if I just give them a quick wipe with the vinegar cloth as I put them on, it's peace of mind for me. So I'm just quickly running the cloth around the edge of the lids and placing them on top, just like that. Nearly done. Right, last one. Alright, so then the rings. Now I store my rings on a ribbon or a piece of rope hanging off my shelves. My rings are not pretty. Again, it's partly the weather. It's so humid, dry, dirty here that they discolour. So long as they haven't got any damage on the inside and they're clean, which they are because they get washed every time they're used, I keep using them. Some people don't. Some people have the privilege of being able to have nice clean rings. I don't. So I've never had a ring be an issue so long as the inside, see, it's marked but it's all in one piece. There's no damage to the ring, so I don't find that it's any issue for them to be discoloured the way they are. So if they're bent or if there's pieces sticking up that stop it from catching the lugs, then I will discard them. but they look like this after 1 or 2 uses for me, because they get wet and then I dry them off and hang them up, and dirt, humidity and everything, it's just part and parcel of being outdoor kitchen, living in a desertish sort of a climate with all the red dust but humidity in Australia. So you get over it, you get past it, and you just go, oh well, that's the way it's got to be. So there we go. Fingertip tight, you just use your fingers to do it as tight as you can. That allows for movement of the lid. You don't go in there with your whole hand. And there we go. So they are all ready to go. Now I'm going to put the lids on the rings and the lids on the Fowler's jars first, and I'm probably going to run both canners because they won't all fit in one canner. So I'm going to run both. The stock is slightly warm, so I'll make sure the water is slightly warm when it goes in there, but they were raw packed, so all the contents are cold. So if the stock or the water, or if you used water, was cold, then you could just stick them straight in cold water. But because the stock's still warm, I will warm the water up slightly just so that there's no shock, no chance of damaging the jars. So let's get the rings and lids on the Fowler's jars, and then I will get them all into the canner. Lids and rings on the Fowler's jars, forgot to record it. I'll put a link up in the corner to show you a previous video that shows putting the rings and lids on the Fowler's jars if you need to have a look. So all these are going in the canner now. Alrighty, I ended up with extra stock. So we've ended up with double stacked here. There's 8 on the bottom, 6 on the top of the quarts here, and then the 6 of the Fowler's jars in this canner. So I'm just about to turn them on and get them started. So normal, vent for 10 minutes, and then it is 90 minutes processing time. Other than the fairy lights, we don't really have lights in this part of the kitchen. So I've got a lamp. Oops, I just tipped a glass over. So there you go. So we've got all the quarts and Fowler's jars all full of smoked chicken soup. So what I'll do is I'll put a tea towel over these quarts as well, because of the wind out here, it's outdoors. And then they'll sit here for 24 hours and wait. And then in the morning I will check the seals, take the rings off, and move them to the pantry. So there you go, that is canning chicken soup. Now obviously this is how I can it, not necessarily how you should can it. I'll put a couple of links in the bottom for some approved recipes that you can refer to. It does look like I've had 2 or 3 of the jars that don't look to be bubbling, which might mean that the seal has failed, and that's quite possibly because of the homemade stock, because I used it fresh, warm out of the pressure cooker. I didn't skim any fat off it. So a lot of people will let their stock cool, skim the fat off it, and then use it lean, because then there's no risk of the fat interfering with the seal on your jars. So it's possible that some of the jars haven't sealed properly, which is fine. All it means is that tomorrow, if they haven't got a seal, they'll go in the fridge and we'll probably have soup for dinner. And 3 out of however many I ended up doing, 30 odd is okay by me. So I try not to have any fails, but at the same time it was sort of a big job today, I keep on getting my own light, big job today, and I did it. It's just been hot and just horrible. So anyway, there you go. That's chicken soup in a jar. Hopefully I gave you some information that you can use and encourage you to give that pressure canning a go. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to be notified of anything else that comes out. Alrighty, have a good night. Thanks.
Hey, what's he talking to?
Just thought I'd show you the next morning. So the next morning what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm taking the rings off the jars and testing the seal by picking them up by the seal. I know there's at least 2 in here, and giving the jars a wipe down. This is just a cloth with a bit of vinegar on it. And I know that there's at least 2 jars in here that didn't seal. This one here I found, and I believe this one as well. So I'll take the ring off it, and if I try to pick it up by the lid, I'd imagine it should pop off. Like that. So that one definitely didn't seal. So those 2 I'll put in the fridge and I'll use for dinner tonight. You can reprocess them, but I generally don't. I generally just use them the next day. So I'm going to go through the rest and check them, take the rings off, lift them by the lids, make sure that they're sealed, and give them all a wipe down, and then they just go up on the shelf.